To Indian market. Yeah, we could still say Indian market.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome our audience, friends, relatives. I'd like to welcome everyone to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Indian Fine Arts Market. It's a venture that started about 3-4 years ago and is attracting a lot of the artists from around the country, not only just the Southwest, but some of the friends that I've known over the years, you know, coming from Santa Fe, the old art institute from back in the 60s to today. And today I'd like to kind of start it out rather appropriate with a longtime friend of mine that went to school with many years ago, and a gentleman that I've grown to respect through his art and his medium as perhaps one of the finest potters in the country, coming to us from San Domingo. And I kind of wanted to introduce at this time Mr. Robert Tenorio.
Hello, Robert Tenorio from Santo Domingo, Pueblo, in New Mexico. And I've known Mr. Led for many years. We both went to school at the Institute of American and Arts here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I started doing Indian market since I was like maybe 10 or 12, when we only had to pay like $5 or $7.50. And then it went to $15. My mom cried. We never really applied. We just simply set up our space and sold our jewelry. At the time, I used to help my mom with jewelry because Santo Domingo is known for jewelry making, the leisure workers and all. And then when I came to school in Santa Fe at the Institute of American and Arts, I came to study jewelry, where I studied with Charles Lolma at the time. He was the instructor then, so I took up that class. I did not take up ceramics because at the time I did not know what ceramics meant, because I only knew the word pottery. And it wasn't until maybe around mid-semester that his wife, Auntie Lolma, caught me making up pottery in the ceramic studio, and she had said that you should be in the ceramics class rather than jewelry. So it was her that changed my schedules and rearranged it, and that's when I found out that ceramics meant pottery. So ever since, I used to do stoneware there, and I turned out a lot of stoneware using Santo Domingo designs on them, and that's what was fascinating. And our teacher used to send potteries to the Hurt Museum in Arizona. It was a competitional jewelry show, and I used to win a lot of ribbons. As a matter of fact, one of my early ribbons from the Hurt was in 1969, and I got $50 whole dollars. And that $50 back then went a long ways. And ever since I've been doing pottery. And then when I tried to enter them or sell them at the Indian market in Santa Fe, they never really allowed me because it wasn't considered traditional. So stoneware was never really accepted because it was wheel thrown and all. And then all the galleries or the stores in Santa Fe area were constantly on me that I should go back to the more traditional. When I go back home, when I graduate, go back to the traditional pottery making at home. So that is what I did after I graduated from the high school. I went back home, and I didn't have all the materials to work with, so I depended on my grandmother from my father's side. She showed me all the clay areas and the materials that needed for making up the pottery, Pueblo pottery. So from then on, for many years, I've been doing the more traditional style. But it took me maybe good 5 years before I really got into it, because there were a lot of more harder process than what I used to do at the school. Because at the school, all the materials were available, and at home I had to gather my own. And then with the firing, there was the gas paint at the school. And at home we had to do it with wood, and work with colors and things. So it was a long time.
I was just saying to an artist on the end that the weather's so nice today.
And then doing the Indian market of Santa Fe, I used to enter and I won lots of ribbons. Through many years I won lots of ribbons, and one year I was the poster artist in 1988. Excuse me. And that day all my pieces went early morning. In less than half an hour I saw all my pottery. And people from then on used to come early just to have a good selection or buy from my booth. And it really, really went well. So I won lots of ribbons, enough to make up a couple of quilts. And so I've really built up my name through Indian market in Santa Fe. And at the time also there were all the collectors, the good collectors, the people that knew the more traditional pottery making. And I feel that nowadays we have now lost all the early collectors and the early judges. So for the past maybe 3-4 years, when I enter, I have not yet been winning because they are now more into the contemporary world of art and more of the perfection, which I don't really get using the natural materials and more traditional ways of making pots. I don't get that perfection because how I create them, I don't have control with my materials. Because I do boil different plant juices, not only the spinach juice, but I can boil any other kind of plants that will work on my clay, white clay surfaces. Now, Santo Domingo and Coach T are the only two that have this white, magical white slip that we apply to the pots. And it's the only thing that will turn any kind of plant juices black. And that's what I've been always wanting to show the public. So then I started doing public firings where I can show people that it only happens in the firing because the paint is not black. It only turns black in the firing. And that is another method that I envy some of the potters where their paints are already black so they know where their lines are going. But for me, I don't really have that, I don't have really that control because the paints are very light and very bulky. So that's why my paint or designs are always bulky because I also use the yucca paint brushes for painting.
One of the points it takes I wanted to bring out was what kind of influence the Institute had on you back then. You mentioned Charles Loloman, a lot of the instructors from the old school, the old days, and you know, the impact it had for a lot of us, especially that came from other areas where not necessarily were we raised in a traditional environment, such as the Pueblos here in the Southwest or the Dene, you know, the Navajo. But for a lot of us as artists, you know, it was kind of exposure. And you look at some of the movements that have occurred over the years. You know, we come from an era which will never be again, so to speak. You know, what happened back in the 1960s and early 70s, and you talk about the traditional format, but also, you know, you look at the contemporary. You know, you mentioned some of the different, you know, perspectives, the takes that you had on that. You know, what do you see today as far as a traditionalist, as a practitioner? What do you see as far as unity coming together as artists? What is your feelings about that?
Perhaps the more available of materials and the methods, it has changed the world of the more traditional, I would say, because well, going into pottery mainly, every potter here in New Mexico, I was saying that this is traditional pottery. And yet when I look at them, it doesn't really have that old look. For me, I like to continue what our grandmothers or the early potters started. The more of, I keep using the word traditional. The techniques that they had, the easier, or I should say easier, but it's hard techniques where everything was available to them. But when the arrival of new materials, it made it easier for a lot of the artists to jump in and continue what was considered more traditional and now into more of modern art. And
I think, back then, ceramic sculpture kind of came apart away from traditional, and the foundation was there, but yet we started looking at contemporary pottery, I believe Mr. Partington, I think,
right, yeah.
and Partington and Adelaide, I think she was kind of part of that movement where they still kept the tradition, but yet moved to a new realm. And I think of Juanito Vaquezo, I think of Gino Stabler, some of these people, individuals that came up with some rather unique touches,
right, yeah.
but rather beautiful, and I think there's no room for that. One of the points you had raised earlier in our earlier discussion was talking about, the native students at traditionalism. We're looking about protecting our art forms, and looking at IIA alumni, talking. Perhaps coming together, again, to preserve what we have, what we created back then. What is your...
Again, going back to the material-wise, we really don't have those kind of things on the reservation. All of what was available at the school, it made it easier for us to use. But if I were to do the more traditional things in school, I would have to depend back onto the village area to get my materials, and I keep getting lost too. In the more contemporary area, it was introduced at the school because a lot of more of the collectors or the people who buy art are more for the contemporary world, and I feel that the traditional area has been lost. But the school, in a way, sort of continued each tribe's area as to their art form. But again, the available of all the supplies and the materials that was available, we had to change more into the contemporary area.
What can you see as far as unity coming together, preserving, protecting, but also again recognizing that there's certain needs that we have for our art forms and everything. You mentioned about bringing the alumni together, a dream or goal that you have. Maybe you want to comment a little bit about that.
Perhaps all the early, my alumni area, I don't know how many are still around where they're at. And I felt that some of the eastern tribes that kind of came to the IIA area have stayed in the area because the Southwest is now more known for the art world. And I feel that
like the rest of it, that's nice.
They have 3 years we've done there. I lost it.
Okay, well, anyway, I just want to thank you for the interview and your comments. I think it led to a lot of the people out there, the buyers, or people have an interest in pottery, traditionalism, as I look at it. Traditionalism in a way of being able to protect our past. And again, still recognizing that, yes, movement art is always transcending, it's always moving on, and I do want to compliment you and thank you. It's indeed a great honor to have Robert, express himself in a good way, in a traditional way. So I want to thank you, and again, we hope that you enjoy yourself throughout the weekend, and we'll definitely see you.
All right,
thank you.
I hope